Okay, so in this video we're going to be talking about the Gemfan whoop props. Obviously there's other brands out there, HQ prop, etc. This video is not about those other guys, it's about this particular prop. I believe I've got all of them. Pretty sure I've got all of them, although there's all the various types, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. Tried them all. I've been sitting on them, trying them on various whoop style quads here, brushed, brushless, etc. I'm going to give you my assessment of all of this here. This is just a few. I've got even a couple dozen more other craft with these props on there. I'm just going to give you my assessment of these, and I'm actually not even going to show you any flight footage because I looked at the flight footage and compared it to sort of what they flew like before, and it looks pretty much the same to me. So that was kind of, showing you flight footage is totally pointless. So if you were like, oh, let's look at the flight footage, there isn't any. So if you were looking for that, I guess you can stop watching the video now. In any event, here is just a few examples of the props here in the bag. They come in two sizes, of course, the 40mm size, and you also get the 31mm size. So it's going to be either 1220 or 1635. They come in various hole sizes, of course, because the whoops have various props of different prop shafts of different sizes. So there's going to be for 31mm, there's going to be 0.8mm for the prop shaft, and then there is going to be 1mm. So there's two types of those. And then for the 40mm props here, you're going to get a 1mm hole or a 1.5mm hole. And obviously they come in different colors, of course. You can check the link and see what other colors are out there. I don't recall all of them offhand. And for each of these types, size and propeller shaft size, you have a 3-bladed version and a 4-bladed version. So let's just go ahead and just show you. Obviously, you can see one of these on here already. I'm going to actually pull these out. So this is the 40mm with the 1mm hole. I believe, let's see, I think the 40mm all come with the little M2 holes for securing if you want to use that. Obviously it adds weight. I believe none of the 31mm props have a screw hole, so those are just for the motors, like the 1100 size motors, for example, have the little holes there. I don't think any of the 08 sizes have the little holes, so the extra holes for mounting via screw. But here's a 4-bladed propeller, and it has a pretty unique looking design, as you can see here. It just, the edge of the prop does kind of come up a little higher, and that does, come into play here on some of these where they don't really sit down on the motor bell here. You can see that in this one here, the prop sticks up a little bit, and that's because on a lot of these Gemfan props, at least in the batch I got, the holes are very tight. It does mean that if you can get it on, they aren't going to fly off like other brands, but it does also mean that they might sit up a little bit here if your duct isn't that tall. So something to keep in mind. And then of course the biggest thing about these guys is that they're not really 40mm. And let me just show you here. I think it's like 42 or 41. Yeah, it's like 41mm. So that's going to come into play on things like the E-Machine trash can, where the duct is exactly like 40mm, I think, or maybe 41mm. So the tips of these props here on the 40mm Gemfans will scrape the duct on those. Now here's a 40mm on this tiny 7X HD conversion I did, and this one does not scrape the duct here. I think it's because this duct's a little bit bigger, and you can see it sits inside the duct because it fits this particular brush motor shaft perfectly fine. So yes, so some frames are going to be affected and some aren't. Just keep that in mind. Now let me just give you some weights here, and I'll talk about performance. Okay, so this is the weight of the 40mm prop with the 4 blades. And I'm going to give you the weight of 4 of them because that'll give you a better average per prop, because there's a little bit of variation per prop. So you can just divide by 4 to get a per prop weight. So 2.34 for the 4-bladed 40mm. Okay, this is the weight of the 4-bladed, or sorry, the 3-bladed 40mm. So it's coming obviously a little bit lighter, one less blade, so about 2.07. Alright, so this is the 31mm 4-bladed. 1.16. This is the 31mm 3-bladed. It's coming at a 1.04. Okay, so now they got all the little text and specs out of the way. I can give you my assessment of these props, and I think that they're going to be better than a lot of the stock props on, I would say, most of the brushless and the brushed whips out there. I think in some certain cases, like the brushed whips, certain props might be better than these. I didn't really do a lot of side-by-side comparisons. The difference is not that noticeable. Now, I know that there's some thrust tests out there on these guys, and it does show, especially on the 40mm version, that there's a little bit more thrust on these versus stock props. And even like, say, the HQs, but I think that has to do with the fact that the prop's not 40mm, it's 41mm, and that does make a difference in terms of how much thrust it produces. So yeah, if you have a craft that has a duct that can fit the 41mm prop and you want more power, then yeah, go for these instead of the HQs. That's for sure. Now, one thing on this one here, like I switched. This is pretty heavy because it's got the HD camera and all this, the conversion. Bigger battery underneath here, and these are only 8mm. These are 8x20mm motors, and this had a 3-bladed King Kong prop on here, and it was very underpowered. Now, once I switched it over to this 4-bladed Gemfan prop, I did feel pretty significant difference in terms of handling. It didn't freak out as much, and it definitely had more power. Now, it wasn't like a ton more power, like it wasn't like doing flips and rolls and doing crazy acrobatics, but I felt like I had more control, which is, I think, what the 4-bladed prop is giving me on something that's kind of underpowered here. So I think that's sort of a general rule that I was finding, is that these props here, with the shape and the way that they produce thrust, especially on motors with a little bit less power, a little bit less torque, like these brush motors or any sort of, like, say, a smaller brush whip, I think you're going to see more of an impact there than, say, on something with a bigger 0802, 0803, or maybe even like an 1102, 1103 motor, because those motors have so much more power. The power difference between the stock props and these props isn't as noticeable to me, in my opinion. Now that's just my opinion. Other people will, they might disagree with that. That's fine. I have absolutely no data to back up what I'm saying. It's just how these props feel to me. And I do feel like that they are better than most stock props that you'll see out there. But again, that's just my opinion, and based on my experience flying these around for about the last month or so. Anyway, that is pretty much it in terms of my opinion on these props. I am going to be getting a bunch of the HQ props, HQ whip props pretty soon. So I'll, it'll probably be another month before you see a video on that. Because I like to fly them around and get a feel before I announce to the world what my opinion on something like a prop is, because I don't do thrust stand tests. I basically fly them and fly them and fly them, and then I get a feel for if I feel like it's better or worse or the same, and then I can let you guys know. Anyway guys, that's going to do it for this video, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.